Institutes of the Christian Religion by John Calvin. Chapter 2. The Knowledge of Man and Free Will. It is not without good reason that the old adage has always strongly urged man to know himself. For if we think it shameful to have no knowledge of the practical affairs of life, ignorance of ourselves is even more discreditable. That is because in taking thought for all our necessities, we often go miserably wrong and indeed become utterly blind. But the more useful this injunction is, the more careful we must be not to misinterpret it. This, we know, was the fate of certain philosophers who, while exhorting man to know himself, at the same time encouraged him to reflect on his worth and excellence, and taught him to consider only what might boost his self-confidence and puff him up with pride. Now, God's truth requires us to look for something different when we think about ourselves, namely a knowledge which banishes our arrogant belief in our own strength and which removes every excuse for vainglory, leading us instead to humility. This is a rule we ought to follow if we want to reach the goal of right thinking and right action. I know how much nicer it is for men to be allowed to recognize their gifts and praises than to see and understand their poverty, shame, vileness, and frailty. There is nothing our mind desires more than to be wooed by honeyed words and flattery. So when it hears that its gifts are highly esteemed, it is only too ready to believe whatever is said in its favor. It is no wonder, then, that this is where most people have gone wrong. For just as men have a blind and inordinate love of themselves, they are easily persuaded that there is nothing in them deserving of blame. Consequently, everyone, acting as his own advocate, is open to the false idea that man is competent in and of himself to lead a good and happy life. If there are some who choose to think more soberly of themselves and to give God some credit, so as not to appear to claim everything for themselves, they nevertheless so apportion roles with God that they end up with the greater share of power, wisdom, and righteousness. Thus, because man is so prone to self-flattery, nothing can please him more than to be tickled with empty praise. Accordingly, no one has been more welcome than the person who most lauds the excellence of human nature. Nevertheless, any teaching which urges man to trust in himself is merely a deception, so great a deception indeed that whoever believes it is destroyed by it. What, after all, do we gain by vainly trusting in our ability to plan, order, undertake, and implement our cherished schemes, when we lack both sound understanding and power to accomplish anything at all? These things, I maintain, we lack from the outset, yet we stubbornly insist on going our own way until we come to utter ruin. This is bound to happen to all who believe that they can do things in their own strength. Anyone who heeds teachers like this, who uselessly urge us to dwell on our own righteousness and power, will achieve nothing by way of self-knowledge, but will be blinded by the most deadly ignorance.